In a world where one woman tries to start a podcast,
how will I ever do this on my own?
She thought she would have to get expensive equipment.
What? I can do all of this on a free app?
She thought she would have to find creation tools all over the internet.
You mean it can all be contained in an app on my phone and computer?
She thought she would have to do all her own distribution.
You mean to tell me this app is going to send it to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all those other platforms for me?
She thought she would never make any money.
I don't have to wait for a minimum listenership to monetize?
She thought that she would have to find all kinds of different equipment and pieces.
But I'm going to download this free Anchor app and get started today.
Visit Anchor.fm and download the free Anchor app to be just like her, the ultimate podcaster.
Hello and welcome to the Lou Review. This is your host, Rosa, and I'm here with Leo Fante, the owner and operator, I'm going to say, of Fantes Coffee. It is a gorgeous coffee shop here off of Grinstead. And can you tell us, Leo, what Fantes Coffee brings to the market that sets it apart as a coffee restaurant?
Sure, yeah.
Roastery.
Happy to do that. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Fantes Coffee is the culmination of 44 years of industry work, being part of the Coffee Association nationwide. I saw an opportunity in our market, which, Louisville is a mature coffee market. We have a great coffee culture here.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really good coffee houses in Louisville, and but I noticed that in the Louisville area, there was no true European style coffee house. Oh. So there's a lot of coffee shops in Louisville, but no real true coffee houses.
What would you say is the main difference between a coffee shop and a coffee house then?
Well, the real difference between a coffee shop and a coffee house is coffee shops are typically in retail, kind of settings, maybe along Bardstown Road, maybe along Frankfort Avenue. They're typically in a store front, along with other businesses. Many of them have drive-throughs, but none are in a 100-year-old home. Which makes it a coffee house.
Is that what normally they
if you go to Europe? Yeah, if you go to Europe, a lot of the coffee houses in Europe are old homes, old historic buildings. They're architecturally significant. They're, usually beautiful by design. They typically give you a very warm, inviting feel when you walk in, just like if you were going into your grandma's house. Oh. So, it's a different mindset. It's not paper cups and plastic lids through a little window and a hurried up, here's your coffee, thank you very much, and off on your way. It's more of a come in and sit on a comfortable, soft seat, relax a little bit, unwind from the world out there, bring a good book. On the weekend, kick your feet up and stay. You don't have to leave.
Have a quiet conversation with somebody.
Exactly. Have a great conversation. It's the whole coffee house culture and the whole coffee house concept was built around being a community gathering spot, so that people in the neighborhood could come and they could sit in this house where they feel comfortable, and maybe on a couch or next to the fireplace or in a front window that overlooks the park like we have, and have a beautiful view, an unhurried place that people can kind of come in and relax and share ideas, and build community. And that's kind of our mission, was to bring that true European style coffee house to Louisville, Kentucky. When you come in and we serve you here, your coffee is served in a 1 pound, 3 ounce preheated to 202 degree ceramic mug.
Oh my.
They empty the mug after they preheat it, and then they pour the hot coffee in at 200 degrees.
Yeah.
And so it keeps the coffee hot. It's served on a saucer with a lace doily and a Danish butter cookie, because that's just the way it's done. And, it gives you the vibe of kind of an old school, lost, kind of relaxing experience. It's more than just going to a coffee house or coffee shop and drinking, your coffee out of a paper cup and a plastic lid. It's if you served it that way in Europe, they'd laugh at you. They'd be like, "What are you doing?" So
I won't ask what Starbucks does over there.
Yeah, well, it's paper cups and plastic lids.
But you kind of alluded to 44 years in the coffee industry specifically. So how did you get into coffee, Leo?
I started in coffee basically back in 1978. And when I got started, it was because of a friendship that I had developed with a classmate at Trinity High School. His name was Tony Conti. And Tony and I...
Is he related to anybody named John?
He is John's son. And so I was in Tony's wedding, and I met his father. And his father asked me, what I was doing. I was working at an A&P, Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, which was a grocery chain here in town. And they're no longer here, but they served coffee as well. And so that's what I did. I fell in love with coffee there. It was at the end of every checkout aisle was a grinder, and as the customers would come through the store, we would grind their 8 o'clock coffee fresh, and people would come in, and I always noticed how many customers would tell us, "We love coming to this grocery store because of the way it smells." Well, the first smell they smelled was
the coffee.
Fresh ground coffee, and so it just set their grocery chain apart from other grocery chains, and they sold a tremendous amount of coffee and tea.
Okay, I would love some insight into what was it like in 1978 in Louisville.
Yes.
When there wasn't a coffee shop on every corner, and there wasn't a...
Well, I worked for a pioneer. I worked for a pioneer in the coffee industry. John Conti, opened his first coffee shop in Oxmoor Center on the second floor mezzanine on December, if I remember correct, the 1st of 1975, if I'm correct. Wow. That's going back a long time. But he opened that first store there before Starbucks was even a twinkle in anybody's eye.
Yeah.
And he had espresso, and he had, lattes and, fresh baked goods. And he just was so ahead of the curve, it wasn't even funny. And, he was a visionary. He saw where it could go. He opened several retail shops, coffee shops. And he decided at one point he wanted to become a roaster, and myself and the people that worked there were really encouraging about doing that, and helped him dismantle several different coffee roasting facilities. I went up and actually took them apart with a friend of mine, brought some stuff back.
That's not where this coffee cupping table came from, is it?
No, this coffee cupping table came from New Orleans, Louisiana, out of a coffee roastery down there. And it's a 100-year-old antique marble top cupping table. It pays homage to, probably millions of cups of coffee have been cupped across this table. In fact, I have the original cupping spoon from a guy named Albert, who taught me how to cup when I was in my 20s. And he was in his probably 70s then, and he was a coffee cupper for the largest specialty coffee importer in the world, Westphal Brothers, out of New Orleans. And he cupped all the coffee for them, and he's the one that trained me. And I have his cupping spoon actually framed on our brick. When you walk in the door, there's a brick fireplace chimney, and his cupping spoon's on there with a little letter.
That's so special and personal. Wow.
A lot of what we do in this business is very personal. It's a small family business. When we did our logo design, I sat down at my art table at my house, and I drew it on a canvas, and I put a circle out, and I knew I wanted to include our wedding rings, my wedding ring, and then my wife's wedding ring.
Mary?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then I thought, what's special about our family? Because I want it to be a family-oriented place. And there's 4 coffee beans. The one on the top left is my grandfather, Leo Joseph. The one on the top right is my dad, Leo William. The one on the bottom, right is me, Leo Richard. And the one coming out of my wife's wedding ring is my son, Leo Joseph, who's named after my grandfather and will be the future of our company at some point. But
Leo the Fourth.
yeah. And so that's
Wow.
different to have 4 Leos.
Yeah, it is.
And I wanted to include that in the logo. And then Fantes at the top, which my grandfather, who was a builder, Leo Joseph, always told me, grandson, if you ever get your own business, put your name on it. It's like signing a check. You'll never let anybody down if your name is on the business. And I'm like, well, it made a lot of sense to me. And so it had to be Fantes. And then, of course, what we do is coffee. And the tribute to our city of Louisville that we love, we're 5 generations. We're a 5th generation Louisville family. Wow. So they came through, Ellis Island, my great-grandfather, and settled here. But Montpellier, France is on the right, the fleur-de-lis, and on the left is the city of Louisville. So it represents Louisville and then our sister city in France. So, things as small as our logo, there's a lot of thought and a lot of passion and a lot of local heritage that went into the development of that.
Local and global.
Yes. Yeah, actually, yes.
So where did your international experience come from? When did you go to Europe and experience these coffee houses that really gave you the vision to bring that here?
Well, the experience that I garnered, what was great as a young man working for John Conti, I told him in a meeting one day, I said, what is that plaque on the wall? And he said, Leo, it's a National Coffee Service Operator of the Year Award. And I said, really? And he said, out of, at the time, 2,000 coffee companies in America, I received not 1, but 2. I'm the only person in the world to have 2 of those.
Wow.
I served as president of the National Coffee Association. And to earn that, you have to serve on the Tri-State, the Midwest, and the National Board. And you have to work every seat on all of those. And I looked him in the eye as a 20-year-old kid, and I said, I'm going to get that award one day. And he looked at me kind of funny, and he said, do you realize what you just committed to? And I kind of...
How many years of service that is?
Yes, yeah. I kind of laughed and said, yeah, I think so. You just explained it to me. And he said, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to fund your education for being so enthusiastic. And so he got behind me, and he got me involved in the Tri-State Coffee Association. He got me on the board, and I served every seat on the Tri-State. And then I was asked to serve on the Midwest board, and went along and served every seat on the Midwest board. Then I was asked to serve on the National, and I served every seat on the National board. And by the time I became, the incoming president, because of acquisition and merger of large companies gobbling up small companies, the association numbers had dwindled. And we had to close the office in Reston, Virginia, and move the staff into an association management company. I discovered a lot of this when I was the treasurer of the association. I told them, here's the future. We're going to have to do some really serious changes.
Yeah.
And we had to find an association management company to take over the National Coffee Association and the education program. And so we rolled it up into a group out of Chicago on NAMA, on Wacker Street named NAMA. And they were very cash flush. They wanted to do great coffee education. And so today they still do a lot of coffee education at NAMA. And that kind of created the education arm for the country. So being involved in all that travel and all of those boards and associations and just serving the coffee industry, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally, that's how I got my exposure to, all the coffee houses and We got a lot of certifications through the Specialty Coffee Association of America, SCAA, which is now the SCA, Specialty Coffee Association of the World. It's a world association. Started by a guy in California named Ted Lingle, who I know really well, and has grown just unbelievably big. And now they're kind of the controlling association for the coffee industry worldwide. Mm-hmm. And so that's the way I learned my education. You know, I was funded by a local businessman that was very successful, and he invested in a young guy and gave me a passion, and it's become my life's passion, and very much consuming it. Mm-hmm. When you love what you do, it's never work. So you get up in the morning and you come in and you're excited about doing what you're going to do, and you're passionate about it. And much like the song that Seal wrote, Kiss from a Rose, there's a line in that I absolutely, love, that, he mentions that it can become, your passion can become an addiction, and it's addiction that you can't deny. And so with me, that's what coffee has become. It's definitely an addiction that I can't deny, because I absolutely love it. I enjoy it. It's really part of who I am as a person. It's been in my heart and my soul for 44 years, and I learn something new every single day. So it's not like you get to this point and now you know everything. No, it's not that way. It's you get to this point, you want to learn more. And so that's the addiction part. You just become thirsty for knowledge and thirsty for, understanding, not only manufacturing techniques and way to make better coffees, way to enhance the flavors, way to find the sweet spot for every single coffee in the world. That's why I have to laugh when they talk about third wave coffee houses that, young people get involved in, and they get started and they do a third wave coffee house, and they believe that you can't roast any coffee over, medium roast. And it's just such a fallacy, because so many coffees in the world don't even start to develop to their full potential until they're roasted in the dark. As I was telling you earlier, the Sumatran coffees, you would never get the chocolate flavors or that rich, thick, syrupy mouthfeel that you get by roasting that medium roast or light roast. So there's just a lot of things that I think, when you drill down on coffee and you look at the history of coffee and you pay homage to all the people that have come before you in the industry, you don't learn that overnight. It takes,
it's an experience factor.
It takes lots of years of just, passion for your product to learn and understand history and, coffee and the way it goes. So every morning is something new and different, and, we really enjoy it. But we're working hard, with the business every single day to expand, the business outside of the four walls of the coffee house. Mm-hmm. The coffee house will always be at the center of what we do. It's always like the crown jewel in what we do, and we're really proud of it. But, we're private label roasting now for over 25 different coffee houses.
Oh.
So we're supplying
that don't have their own roastery.
Yes. So
but they want to provide the same environment for
they want a
having
level
the experience.
Yes, they want a real level of quality in the product that they serve. Mm-hmm. They want somebody that's going to come and help them, understand the coffee business. So we consult a little bit with them, and we help them along the way. If there's questions we can answer, we help them, with our knowledge base of so many years of doing it. But we provide them a really high-end, really good coffee. It's funny, our tagline for our coffee is really good coffee. Mm-hmm. We never claim to be the best. I think that's so kind of almost arrogant.
Or meaningless if everyone's saying
Yes,
it. Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, really. Exactly. It's like, come on. How about just being real with people and tell them, you work hard every single day to develop a really good product. And that's really what we do. We work really hard every day to provide a really good product for people. And now we're doing it, as I said, for all these different coffee houses that hang their shingle on having really good coffee. And
you talked before about cupping. Can you define that for people who don't know what you're talking about? They might think you're doing cupping massages or something.
No. Cupping in the coffee industry, can do a couple different things. But historically, what coffee cupping was historically brought to light for was to rate and grade coffees. So if I sent for a request of some green coffee, let's just say, I wanted some Sumatra Lake Tola 19 Ulos coffee. I send that request in. They send me the green coffee from the coffee buyer, and it comes with a lot number, and then you sample roast that, and then you grind it, and you put some in the bottom of the cup, and you use 212 degree boiling water over the coffee, and you pour slowly and allow the coffee to form a crust. Then once the crust rises and it's there, you blend it up really good and allow the grounds to soak and saturate and bring in all of the water so that they swell and they expand. It's basically called the bloom, and then they rise again, and they create another crust. And once that crust is created, then you take a cupping spoon and you go with the back of the spoon into the cup, and you push back, and then you pull forward, and you bring forward a spoonful of coffee, and you slurp. It's a very kind of not attractive sound, but you slurp and spray the coffee all over the palate, and then you grade each aspect of the coffee.
And you've got these like flavor wheels here.
Yes. Yeah, the Coffee Taster's Flavor Wheel is just a guide for people, that don't fully understand coffee cupping. It gives them a very visual guide to be able to see what we're doing, and when we rate it and when we talk about it.
Did this exist when John Conti was teaching you?
No.
Is this one of the educational products that you guys worked on in the associations?
Yes. Ted Lingle, the executive director of the Specialty Coffee Association of America originally, now of the world, now a CA only of the world. He kind of got together with some people, and they developed a lot of these tools that you can use, scientific tools that you can use. They created the Golden Cup standard, which is a way to measure total dissolved solid suspension in aqueous solution. So what you're doing is you're measuring the amount of oils that you extract out of the coffee into the water, and that gives you something that you can plot and graph on a chart to see if it falls within the optimum balance range. So if you use 4 ounces of coffee to brew a 64-ounce pot of coffee, and you brew it at 202 degrees, and you brew it at exactly 3-minute dwell time where it extracts, and you follow the line down from 4 ounces, and you see where it intersects at 1250, knowing that you have 200 TDS, total dissolved solids, in just the water alone. So your meter reads 1450. You subtract the 200 because you take the water-based solids out, and that leaves you with 1250. And so you see where they intersect, and it's right square in the center of the optimum balance window. And when you follow it down, it tells you that you've extracted 25% of the oils, and it's a perfectly brewed cup of coffee. Whoa. And so it's a science. And, what we try to do is bring that science to life and to educate people about it, and to let them know on the back of every single bag of coffee that we sell, there's an Agtron number. And what an Agtron is, it's a light spectrometer, and it measures the amount of degree of roast color from light to dark.
Okay.
And it measures it well beyond what you can tell with the human eye. It's a very specific number that it gives you, and those numbers correlate with the SCA color tiles.
Oh,
SCA.
okay. Here on the color
well,
flavor wheel.
Color tiles. There's a set of color tiles. If you see the little piece of paper that hangs on the right there, it shows you the Agtron numbers and then the SCA color tile that number falls within. Oh, okay. And so on the back of our bags, when we say it's a full city roast, which is the first of the dark roast, characteristics, it actually assigns the number, so we know where in the full city range our coffees fall, and we're that precise. And so, we take it to a whole different level with the science of coffee in the way that it's not only roasted and the roast curves that we use, and the special way that we roast. We don't roast by wire. Just about everybody else in our...
You say by wire?
Yeah, just about everybody else in our area roasts by wire. In other words, they have their roaster connected to a laptop. And the laptop has a program in it. And the program controls the gas and the amount of oxygen that's introduced into the roasting process. So the laptop's actually doing the roasting. And it's my content that if you need a laptop to roast your coffee, you're not much of an artisan roaster. In other words, if you got to rely on an electronic device to do your roasting for you, you're not much of an artisan craft roaster. Craft roasting, artisan roasting is about the experience. It's about being intimate with the machine, understanding the machine, hearing the coffee, how it's interacting with the heat, watching the gas pressure, doing everything a roaster would do, a computer would do, only doing it visually and manually, and becoming very in tune with the roaster, being part of the roaster, basically. Yeah. You become part of the process. And we teach all of our roasters how to artisan craft roast, and they don't need computers. It's, the computers, they're great. We in today's age, I think we depend on them way too much. And I think a lot of the artisan craftsmanship in several different industries has been diminished greatly by computers. And so, we're doing it the old school, old-fashioned way and teaching our guys how to truly artisan craft roast, and they're very, very good at it. And we back it up with science.
Oh, yes, definitely.
With that Agtron light spec, that's what...
But we don't actually want the robots to make the coffee for us?
Exactly. Yeah.
Even if they could, because we've scienced it so hard.
Yes, exactly.
Now, what you have described has spanned some really big picture thinking and some really large scope implications for the world. But then you describe this intimate connection you have to the actual roasting, and in the cupping process, you have to be so mentally in the present moment. Oh. The way you've described this makes it sound almost like a mindfulness exercise, and it makes me think that it would be really good for your mental health to do this. For mine, it is. I gotta tell you, I thoroughly enjoy the process. I thoroughly enjoy the just the whole process, from bringing in the best coffees from the world's best growing regions. We have a coffee right now that we're doing that is an amazing coffee from San Ignacio, Peru, and it's a San Ignacio Peruvian coffee that's farmed on a little farm, and the little farm is owned by a woman that grew up on a coffee farm. Her dad was a farmer. Not there, but
in
on
Peru.
That same
in
ground.
Peru. Not on the exact same finca or farm, but right in that same area. And as she grew up and went to college, she decided she wanted to come back and be a coffee farmer. Yeah. And so she started a woman's co-op down there in Peru, and her name is Abita Quinde. And so her and her husband and her family work on their family farm, on her family farm. She plants the trees, she goes out, she nurtures the trees for 5 years to get them to produce their first commercial crop. Eventually they produce a commercial crop. The interesting part about that is, a tree, will produce about, 3,500 cherries a year annually. And that produces about 7,000 seeds, coffee seeds. And those 7,000 coffee seeds equate to about 1 pound of coffee per tree per year. So
that's it?
That's it.
Good grief.
And it takes a lot of love and care. And Abita Quinde, she lovingly cares for her farm. She takes care of her trees. She harvests her product. She grades her product. They clean the product, they bag the product, and they send it to us. And so it's a woman produced coffee from seed to actually cup, because what we do here when we roast here to keep that whole thing honest, we take one of our young ladies who works here in the coffee house, and she goes over and works with our master roaster under their supervision, and they tell her what to do, and she roasts the coffee. And so it's actually planted by women, grown by women, harvested by women, roasted by women, and if the woman brews it at the house, then it's seed to cup, a complete thing. And so that's the mindfulness that we use when we do the purchasing of the coffee. And
the intentionality.
It is.
Yeah.
It's very, very intentional, and we seek out those kind of things to bring forward at the coffee house. So we have a limited time offer coffee every single quarter that's very special that way.
Is that like the Andrew Snorton one we were talking about?
Well, Andrew Snorton is it won't be a limited time coffee. That'll be a in perpetuity coffee. Andrew is a friend of mine that, I met randomly. I got a call from him one day, and he said, Mr. Fante, my name's Andrew Snorton. I'm an author, and I'm out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. And he said, I'm a big baseball fan. He said, I've got family in Louisville. I'm going to be coming to Louisville. I've got a brand new book out. I'd love to do a book signing at your cafe. And I thought, you know what? That sounds amazing. And so I said, let's do it. And I got a chance to meet him. And it just, goes to prove that, people are the same everywhere. And, I don't care what city you come from, what town you come from. There's some really great people in every town.
And when you click, you click.
You do.
Yeah.
And it just was one of those things that he and I really clicked when he came. And, I followed him, and he follows me, and we talk. And I'm super excited. He's going to be coming in Sunday to do another book signing here. So I'm just thrilled to be able to see him again. We've become friends, and we developed a blend of coffee together for him to sell called the Author's Blend, Author Andrew Snorton's Blend, and it's going to be amazing. So we're super excited about that.
Do you mind to describe to me how this blend represents your friendship?
Sure. Yeah. The coffees that we chose are a medium coffee. In other words, it's not a dark roast. It's not a light roast. It's right in the center, and kind of like where our friendship is, it's kind of right in the middle. And, it's a full-bodied coffee. It's got a nice finish. It's got a nice lingering taste. A lot of those things, through the development of putting it together were things that we wanted to kind of do to mirror the relationship that we've got. It develops really nice in the cup. It's great when it's first brewed. It gets even better as it cools. And so...
well, that's not normal, is it?
No, really.
You don't always want to
That's
look
pretty
like a
it's
cup of
pretty
coffee.
unusual. It's pretty unusual to have a coffee that actually develops that's really good, but gets better as it cools. And so...
They say you're really close with someone when you can sit in silence together.
That's the truth.
And that sounds like what you're describing.
Well, it's funny because him being in Atlanta and him traveling around, he's a big baseball guy. He's written a book about baseball, Major League Baseball. He's just a really educated guy who is just so down to earth. And brings a big heart to the table. I mean, you sit down with Andrew, and in 5 minutes you go, man, I really like this guy. So it's really cool. It's neat to be able to do those kind of things.
Yeah, and I love the personal connection that you have to this on every level.
Yeah.
And even the parts that seem like they're just going to be really technical are really like emotionally meaningful to you.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, when it's your passion, again, it's like I was saying earlier, you got to be truly careful because it can consume you. And, it is definitely, as Seal says in his song, Kiss from a Rose, I absolutely love that line. It's a growing addiction that I cannot deny, and it truly is. And every day you get up and you go, wow, it's, how did I find what I wanted to do so early and be blessed to be able to do it? So, yeah.
A lot to be thankful for.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Thankful for my grandkids.
Yeah.
Luke, my oldest grandson, is 6. And, Lily, my granddaughter, she's 4, 5. And then Lucy is going to be 3. Wow. So, I have 3 grandkids that we love dearly. And I get a chance to see them. We have drinks here named after all 3 of the grandkids. And the drinks are crafted along with their personalities. Lily is as sweet as you can be. She's just such a petite, girly girl who's just a sweet little girl. And so her drink is with honey and lavender and espresso, and it's just really good. So it kind of really is part of her personality, I think. Luke, he can be a bit salty. So he's a young man, and he's just he's a swimmer, and he's a great kid. We love him so much, but he's going to tell you what's on his mind if you listen. So he can be a bit salty. So salted caramel is the main ingredient in the Luke latte here. And our youngest granddaughter, Lily, like I said, who's turning 3, we made her drink rose because we just didn't quite figure her personality out because she was so young. But now I'm really getting a vibe for her personality more.
Okay.
And I think she's going to go the salty direction too. So,
will it be a salted caramel rose? That'll be interesting.
We got to come up with one for her. But
okay.
Yeah, so we truly try to be intentional in everything that we do here.
Well, I really appreciate that, and it has just been a joy to get to know you, Leo.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for making the time to come on a Friday afternoon in a beautiful fall day. I mean, this time of year is glorious.
Well, and it's getting better every day. So thanks for being with us on the Lou Review. If you have not been to Fantes Coffee, definitely come check it out in person. You can buy it pretty soon. Are we going to tell people?
Yes.
The secret?
Yes.
It's going to be available at Paul's Market.
Paul's Fruit Market will be the first place to carry our product outside of the 4 walls of our coffee house.
In addition to the special blends you have at Angel's Envy.
Correct, yes.
And
Michter's.
Do you have any others that I didn't overhear about?
Sure, yeah. We're doing a lot with, the bourbon industry, being a Kentucky boy and, being born and raised here. Bourbon's such a big part of who we are as people in Louisville. And we're doing 2 different coffees for Angel's Envy. We're doing an Angel's Envy Rye and an Angel's Envy Bourbon. And there's a lot of, thought and effort that's gone into those coffees as well.
And that's a roast that people can take home and grind themselves.
Yes. Yeah. Buy them at Angel's Envy. You go down there and visit them and take a tour of the place and pick a bag up. And the same with Michter's. We worked with Joe. He has one of the oldest bourbon brands in the world.
Yes.
And Michter's, was around when George Washington was fighting.
Whoa, I didn't realize it was that old.
Yeah, he's an amazing businessman. Joe, and the city owes him a great deal of gratitude. He took the Fort Nelson building down there, which is one of the most architecturally significant buildings on the whole Main Street row, and completely renovated it, and it's beautiful. And if you haven't been to that Fort Nelson distillery that Joe and his team at Michter's put back together for the city of Louisville, it's gorgeous. And what he's gifted the city of Louisville by doing that is amazing. Just going down there to see the architectural beauty of this building, it's moving. And the product that they do in there is amazing, the quality of it. So, yeah, we're proud to do 2 different coffees for them as well, a rye and a bourbon coffee. We're doing Yellowstone coffee for Limestone Branch Distillery.
Oh, wow.
Which is a nice, boutique roastery, small batch distillery in Lebanon, owned by, started by my friend Steve Beam, and my brother Steve Fante is the bourbon brand ambassador for Yellowstone.
Oh, Steve on Steve.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, we've got Rebel Yell with Lux Row that we do. We have the Barrel Stave Company that's out that way that we do the coffee for them. Wow. So it's we're growing in a lot of different directions and areas, and it's a blessing.
Well, that is utterly fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you have not already, stay tuned to the Lou Review podcast to hear even more interviews in the Louisville area. Subscribe for notifications and follow us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at Lou Food Reviews. And we'll see you in the next episode.